Good evening, ladies and gentlemen on the interwebs, wherever you may be. My name is James Murua. You're on the James Murua Literary Podcast. This live stream is brought to you in partnership with the Frankfurter Buchmesse and funded by the German Federal Foreign Government. Welcome, Karibu, wherever around the world you might be, whatever time you are at. I'm going to start by introducing our guest for today. The one right next to me is Edwige Renee Dro, and the next one is Beata Umubyeyi Mairesse. Hello, Edwige. Hello, Beata.
Hi.
Hi. Hello.
Okay, so I'll just read a bit of. I'll read the profiles quickly because you need to know who you're dealing with. Beata Mairesse was born in Butare, Rwanda, and came to France in 1994. After surviving the genocide against the Tutsi, she now lives in Bordeaux. She studied political sciences and worked for NGOs living in different continents. Her first collection of short stories, Ejo, was published in 2015, and her second, Les Arts, 2 years later, both won several French literary awards. Her debut novel, Tout tes enfants dispersés, was acclaimed by critics and won the Prix des 100 Continent de la Francophonie 2020. She also writes poetry. Welcome, Beata.
Thank you for having me.
Edwige Renee Dro is a writer, a literary translator, and literary activist from Cote d'Ivoire. Her writings have been published by Bloomsbury, Harper's & Collins, and in magazines like Popular, This is Africa, etc. She has judged and facilitated many writing competitions such as the PEN International Short Story Prize, the Afro Young Adult Project, the Bakwa Magazine Literary Translation Workshops, and most recently the Kendeka Prize for African Literature. She strongly believes that art and literature are the tools that can change society from the better, and in February this year set up 1949, a library of women's writings from Africa and the Black world. 1949's mission is to unearth and shine the light upon contributions of African and Black women to the world in order to inspire and present and future generations. Welcome, Edwige.
Thank you, James.
Let's start with you, Edwige. What is? Tell us about this 1949 library of yours. I mean, I just ended with it. So tell us about it. What's it about? Is it a big thing or what's the story?
Well, it is a project of mine. I've always dreamt of, sleeping among books. But really, seriously, 1949 is the year where women march here against the colonizers. So first in August to free one of the friends who was imprisoned by the colonial administration, and then in December to free the heads of the political party that were in prison. So I chose to call the library 1949 because the stories of African and Black women are sometimes either completely erased or not told in their entirety. So that's why the library focuses on women's writings from Africa and the Black world. It was set up in March 2020, just before the pandemic. So we closed for a couple of months and we reopened again in May. And we are set up in this really populous neighborhood of 1.1 million 1.1 million people with no other libraries. It is a house basically with 3 bedrooms, one of which is mine.
Oh, you set up a bedroom in a house in a library in your house. How has it been received by the people in the area where it's set up?
Well received, first of all, because people were wondering what is this place, because it looks like a house, but it is open, and you're like, it is a library. Then people think it is a Christian library. But it's been well received. Every day we have people come in, people age 14 to 60 will come in, will sit down, will read something. It is always a pleasure when they read, obviously, Marguerite Aboué or Véronique Tadjo, but it's even more of a pleasure when they pick up, a book by Toni Morrison or something that they're not used to, to reading. So yeah, it's been well received.
Do you have anything for by Beata in that library of yours?
Not yet, because I need to be able to actually access Beata's books here, or wait for when I travel. Please send them to me. But I'm sure we'll get to talk about this accessibility and distribution of books.
Yes, it's a real issue.
But I know it is, but please send them.
Okay, Beata, I guess you have some work after we leave there. Let's just quickly talk about your book, All Your Scattered Children. I swear, I read it in French and I could hear you your ears like creaking. Tout enfant dispersé, which in English is All Your Scattered Children. And you won Prix Saint Continent for that. Could you tell us a little bit about this book, what it's about, and what is this Continent's prize that you won?
Okay, so this novel, Tous tes enfants dispersés, I say it in French so that people can hear it. As you said, the translation will be All Your Scattered Children. Actually, it's a family story that starts in the late 50s in Rwanda and goes to France and back. It's a story on 3 generations, the grandmother, the mother who is the daughter and who is she's a mixed race, Blanche, and she comes to settle in France, playing the genocide. And then she has a son in France who is mixed race also. And it's the story of how this family is going to manage to bring together those whom history was dispersed by the big story, the big history. It's a story about motherhood, about transmission, especially when you have to transmit things between different continents, between different color skins, race, and 3 generations trying to renew broken ties and find their place in today's words. That's the story. This is how I can summarize it. It's my first novel because, as you said before, I have only published short stories. And it won the Prix des 5 continents de la francophonie. So it's a prize of the 5 continents, given by a jury of very prestigious writers from France, Canada, Quebec, Belgium, and all the other French-speaking countries, Francophone Africa, Asia, and Middle East Francophone. And this prize has existed for almost 20 years now. Next year will be the 20th anniversary. And it is a prize that that's the end of this prize is to put under the light voices from all around the world of writers who write in French, even if they come from different linguistical backgrounds, and somehow enrich le français, bring something new into this literature that is very much up to now has been seen from Paris. So that's it.
That is really, really fascinating. I mean, with what I want to know from this, because this looks like it's a long-established prize. In the Anglophone English writings part of the world, we are familiar with so many prizes. The Booker, the what. Do you have many prizes like this in the French-speaking part of the world that a writer might, who's writing in French might be interested in entering or in competing in, apart from this Prix Saint Continent?
Actually, there is this very specific thing to France, to French literature, that is called la rentrée littéraire, which is settled in September. It means that in September, end of August, beginning of September, you're going to have around 800 books published in France. It's a lot, because this is where la rentrée is, like, I don't know how you translate this in French. When kids
the
go back
school
to
year.
school. Yeah. But
So
this
when
is
school
only for
begins.
literature. And then you're going to have 5 very prestigious prizes that are going to be given to picked in this 900 books published in September, end of August. So everything is happening kind of then. The most prestigious one, which can be compared to the Booker Prize, and it's really very French, is what we call le Prix Goncourt. And then you have other ones like le Prix Femina, le Prix Renaudot, le Prix Médicis, and I think I'm forgetting one. And so everybody is talking about who is going to get that prize, because when you get that prize, you're going to be very famous. You're going to enter, some unexpected place, and you're going to sell a lot of books, which is something very important. They say that if you have one of these big prizes that are typically French, are given to, for example, the Goncourt is only given to French francophone French book. Femina or Médicis, they have French part, and they will have the international or translated part. But for the Goncourt, it's like typically French, only for French. And they said that if you get one of those prizes, you're going to sell at least 200,000 books. But
a lot.
This is very interesting, and this is typically French. And nowadays, a lot of people are complaining about the fact that it looks like everything is happening during those 2 months, because at the end, the prize is going to be given in November, 3 months, say. And the rest of the year, what is happening? It seems that the whole energy, attention, media, everything is concentrated to those places. So I guess you don't have the same kind of things in other places, because it's not this concentration. And this Prix des Cinq Continents is something apart from that, because the prize is given usually in March, and it comes after a while, and there's more pace in it, and not that much pressure. And of course, it's not that prestigious, but it is really recognized all around the world. Say, most of the people in African countries are not going to follow, who is going to get the Goncourt. But then when you get the Prix des Cinq Continents de la Francophonie, you have more, you have this media audience and things like that all around the world. So it's different.
I wanted to ask you, Beata, James, when you talk about the Goncourt, do you mean it's given to a French citizen? You need to be a French citizen, or
no?
Or you need to have written in French?
You need to write in French, and up to now, the people who were awarded that prize were published by a French publisher. But for instance, this year, and James, you did publish it on your website, we have 3 men of Black descendants who are nominated for the Goncourt. You have David Diop, Franco-Senegalese, who did win the Booker Prize this year for... so the translation in English, in French is Frère d'âme, and in English is At Night All Blood is Black, right? And it was the first French writer to get that prize, and he was Franco-Senegalese, which was for me amazing and really a huge thing, right? And I love that book. Apart from that, and then you have also, and this is for his second novel, is nominated, and you have another guy who's a younger writer, but everybody is looking at him, is watching him, is Mohamed Bougarsar. And he is nominated for all those, big prizes. So we do hope that he at least going to get one of them, and hopefully the Goncourt. And he's Senegalese. He's not Franco-Senegalese. He has a Senegalese nationality. And the third one is from Haiti. And he published, I don't remember, I think it's the Milwaukee Blues. And his name is Louis-Philippe d'Alembert. So this year you have, I think it's for the first time, 3 Black men nominated for the Goncourt.
Edwige, do we have any prizes like this for those of us who are on the continent that you know about? Somebody who's writing French on the continent and they want to enter maybe in Cote d'Ivoire or Mauritania or Mali. Do you know any of these, or any prizes like that?
This is what is interesting. Obviously, here we have Le Prix Ivoire. Although it is an Ivorian at the helm, it welcomes novels written by anybody who writes in French. But I think, it is wonderful that we have Mbugasa being nominated for all of these prizes, that we have David Diop, but it is very France-centric, isn't it? And I think this is what I just hate about, and I'm just using my word really carefully here. I just hate that about so-called Francophone, a term that I actually hate also, but, Francophone, it's just so French-centric. It is like, Paris needs to clap for you before, I want to see energy like, the Arcade, the Arcade thing happening, the Arcade Review, Afritondo Prize, the Kendeka Short Story Prize. And of course, it means that, we also need to, but you do a lot, Beata, I do a lot too. So we will get there, but, at the moment we can kind of bemoan that fact that it's very France-centric at the moment. The Goncourt des lycéens, the Prix Féminin, this rentrée littéraire. And when the books actually arrive on the continent, they're really expensive. I bought the last Mbugasa last time, but in Côte d'Ivoire, it is like 18,900. So nearly 20,000 CFA, about $40 or something, in a country where the minimum monthly wage is $100. So yeah, bravo Mbugasa, but you know what?
It's worth it. And shall we just talk about this issue about France having to everything has to get the French nod? We also have the same thing in let's say in the English speaking part of the world, where the Americans need to give us the nod, or the British need. And I think I spoke to the people who speak in Portuguese last month, and they said the same thing with Portugal having to give the nod, not Brazil. And how bad is it? Like, for instance, is there no are there no collaborations within the continent or within the continent and other parts of France that are coming up that you can say, yeah, we don't need the nod of France?
I think Edwige raised a very accurate issue, and we've been talking about that with other African writers here in France for some time. And actually, this is the fact, and I think it's related to a lot of parameters. It's related to the editorial scene in Africa, the fact that if you are a writer, whether you're in Africa or in the diaspora, and you want to, of course, if you want to publish, you want to be to reach the maximum audience, and that most of the time, if you publish only in an African publishing house, you're going to have a limited audience. So, but this is something, even if you publish in a French publishing house, we really are aware of that. We really are aware of the fact that the prices are
exorbitant,
inaccurate, and then this means that people are not going to be able to buy our books. And then so what's the whole sense of it? Because most of the time the issues in our books are settled, and the characters are settled in Africa, and so there is some disconnection if people and everyday's life we are writing about are not going to read us and are not going to but I think it's even worse in the francophone scene, because most of the time I launched a book, how do you call this, un club de lecture, a book
club.
Yes, here, about Afro-Caribbean literature here in Bordeaux, and we used to talk a lot about that, about the fact that somehow we're thinking, okay, there are reviews in the Anglophone sphere. There are different, I'm thinking about Kwani, but now there's Dope in Namibia, and Kwani in Nigeria, in Kenya, and things in South Africa, things in the Francophone. Up until recently, there were no reviews that you could get published and start, because you start by publishing short stories in Murua and poetry, and then little by little you get to publish the novel or something. We don't even have that up to now. As we say, en dehors de Paris, you have no chains, and so it means that you have to be recognized by Paris to become a writer. And this is nonsense, absolutely nonsense, because it means, and this is the reality, that you have to adapt yourself to what does Paris and the French audience wait to read from an African writer to be recognized. And so if you come and you have some, let's say urban life, something very modern, something
African. I know, wearing your lipstick.
No. And I'm really sorry to say that up to now they still wait for wars and love story for this kind of cliche are still, or they will tell you. A French publisher told me once, we already have a Rwandese writer. We already have a Rwandan writer.
Ooh.
So, meaning that no, they were talking about a woman. Saying that okay, and so like the place is already, like the position is already taken. They will tell you that, meaning that there can only be one history coming from that country. I think it's worse in the Francophone sphere than in the Anglophone. I don't know.
I don't know if it's a case of the grass is greener elsewhere, but I really don't think, when I look at the Anglophone literary scene, I really don't think that they are so much waiting for the nod of the UK or of the US. I really don't think that Kendeka Prize waited for the UK to kind of give, exactly, or Lolway or Troy waited for the UK to kind of say, yeah, Troy, you go, you do your thing. The reason why the nod of France is so present in our literature is because, as Beata says, we need, these things need like a chain. In the Francophone world, you go from publisher to reader. Now, everything that is in between, like bloggers, like festival curators, like literary magazines, like critics, like editors, all of those things, people are missing. I mean, for instance, like in Cote d'Ivoire, there are a lot of initiatives that are happening. And also another thing that we need to, emphasize is just also the quality of some of the stuff that are coming out. We have a lot of great stuff that are being written by young French-speaking writers you know, like Richard Ali, the DRC guy, not the Nigerian one. The DRC guy wrote like a wonderful novel recently, which is just great. You have Fan Akiti, who just won this Prix Lattès with
RFI. Yes,
RFI.
I was part of the jury.
Oh, okay. Well, then,
Yeah.
great work. By the way, I love that book. And one of my friends, who is not a reader, actually, like, you know, was reading my book last time. So in Clinton, I told her, well, read as much as you can, because you know that I do not lend books, right? So she was busy. So that book is great. But, you know, we need quality production also, you know, coming out. And as I mentioned, we also need, you know, more noise made around these books, whether it is through bloggers or whether it is through more like intense marketing or festival. Otherwise, people are trying. Maybe we'll talk more about that later on, but people are trying.
Okay, so maybe we just start at the festivals. What are the festivals that I need to be checking out in the part of the world where people, like, I know this past weekend the French Paris Book Fair had an African section over the weekend, and it was a very exciting thing to see. The Paris Book Fair has an African section. Do we have any like festivals within the French-speaking part of Africa or the French-speaking part of African writers that, you know, we need to be checking out? That, you know, if I'm checking into the industry and I want to know who's happening, who's doing what, I want to go to this festival. Do we know any of them?
You know, we have the Abidjan book fair, but as my dear Goes, you know, the Ivorian writer Goes was saying, is like, we do not need a salon, we need a festival. So basically to say that, you know,
so you don't need a book fair, you need a literary festival.
Yes.
You don't need the merchandise, the commercial one. You need the literary one.
Yeah, we need the literary one. We need the less pompous one, where it is like mostly officials. Yeah, but we need to have that conversation. Seriously, we need to like get away from the heavy language that we have, and maybe it is the French language. It is so diplomatic, but in being so diplomatic and so nice and everything, it covers a lot of the stuff. So I do agree with Goals that we need more festival, less fairs. Yeah, and as for it is great that we have the African book fair in Paris.
What about you, Beata?
So what I attended, I can testify about what I attended last week, and we were talking about that. It was so the title in French was Congrès mondial des écrivains de langue française. Congress, worldwide Congress of French language speaking writers. And it was not the Paris Book Fair that organized it. It was organized by actually a quite famous festival here in France called Étonnant Voyageur. In link with Leila Slimani, who is a writer from Morocco who won the Goncourt a few years ago, and who was nominated by the French president to represent La Francophonie, that French-speaking word, and also with the link with International Organization of Francophonie. A lot of people gathered. We're almost 30 writers in Tunisia, for 2 days, talking about what it is like and what are the issues today of writing in French. And it was really interesting, and maybe I can talk about the outcomes, because for me there was this generational thing with older writers who are still asked to, why do you write in French, and like have to explain for hours where do they talk from, and I think our youngest generation, I'm not that young, but still I can think that I'm part of that generation.
We can talk about the youngins.
Yes, that is for us. It's no longer an issue to say, okay, I write in French, I write in English, I mean, what are we talking about? What are our center of interest. And this is the same thing. A few months ago, James, you were interviewing Maza Mengiste, the Ethiopian American writer, and she was talking about where are we on the shelves of the bookstores? Are we in the African side or French literature, and she was even saying that she was in the Egyptian shelf, but. The thing that this is no more accurate. I mean, guys, we have discussed that for so long. It's no longer about what language. I mean, the language belongs to us, and we don't have to apologize or even be congratulated for writing French, right? This is no longer an issue. But this was the kind of discussions we had. And as for the question of festivals in Francophone Africa, I think you made a point, because there are different festivals, and I was supposed to go in several ones. I was invited, and then there was this whole COVID thing, but I had the chance to go to the one in Douala. The title is Lire à Douala. It's organized by wonderful women in Douala in Cameroon, and it's really great. We went to school, we met with readers and different activities, different events. There is one in Mali, La Rentrée littéraire in Bamako. As you said, Edwige, there is one in Côte d'Ivoire. There used to be one in Brazzaville, but I think it's stopped for the last years.
Yeah.
And I'm quite thrilled.
There was also one in Conakry, wasn't it? In Conakry also?
Yes, but no longer. I think it's stopped.
Yeah.
And I'm very thrilled to announce that there is one that is going to be launched next year in Rwanda. So the first Salon du Livre in Kigali. But the thing is, for example, you realize when you're a writer, you get invited at almost the same date, February. They all organize it at the same time. Meaning, so the conclusion that we had as writers here discussing with with others was that they don't communicate
among themselves.
The organizers of the salon, they don't talk with each other. So it means that it needs a whole organization of, because for instance, if you have to invite a writer who is coming from, I don't know, Canada or Paris or Belgium, and you share the costs, and you will have him coming or her coming first in Abidjan, and then in because
Douala.
And in Douala, and then in Rwanda, and you could do that. But first of all, it means that it needs like a kind of collaboration, and people talk with each other. And the first time I had the opportunity to talk with other writers from the Anglophone sides, from the Lusophone sides, with Afrolytes Sans Frontières, and really I have to thank Sukishwa and all the team around her who organized that, because we don't have that in the. I mean, it's thanks to Afrolytes Sans Frontières that I met, and thanks to Zuki that I met Edwige.
I know.
So,
but everybody meets Zuki on this.
No, it's shocking because you're in the same space, so you should know each other. I would assume you would know each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I want to ask a question, because clearly there's a lot of stuff happening, but how would I know about it? Because, for instance, I've really been covering the Anglophone side for many years, telling you what festivals are happening, what's the news. Apart from, I think Gangeos has been doing an okay job. But do you have anybody else telling us about? Because part of the problem is sharing information. Where do we get information about, Douala, Bamako, Brazzaville, Kigali? Where would we get this information? Is there somebody doing that?
Yeah, I know, right? Gangeos is doing it. There is also this program on Canal Plus. How is it called again? I don't watch TV, but Law Bledou is been doing really an excellent job. I think I have it somewhere. Anyway, I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, it's called Avant Premiere. It's on Canal Plus. So she tries to, like, when you have like new books that are out, she talks about them. But like Beata was saying earlier on, we need more of that. There are initiatives that are happening, but we need for them to be talked about more. We need more people to invest in that. We even need that culture of literature here. I think at least, speaking from the context of Cote d'Ivoire, sometimes everything gets thrown into this thing called literature. I mean, last time I saw this blogger, who started really well, and then he was talking about some 365 days with Jesus, and I'm thinking, okay, this is also part of literature these days. So I think that there needs to be seriously, there needs to be a culture of that. Sometimes I can be really difficult or hard on my country, but because I know there are so many initiatives that are happening that also needs to be supported. There is this guy, he's a slammer, he does slam, sorry, and he's been like trying to turn these books into the more oral form of doing slams with the summaries of the books to get people to read more of the books. You have publishers here like Valès Édition or Les Classiques Ivoiriens who are buying the rights and getting the books sold here, at cheaper prices, so $5 instead of $40, for instance. But more needs to be done, in a sense that it isn't enough to sell the book at $5. You also need to advertise around it. I mean, you had Emily Boom, who was 2020 Kuruma Prize, and there was no noise made around the book here, and yet it was sold at $5. So many people could have bought it. There are exchanges that happen, not so much on the internet, but in book clubs, or so initiatives are happening.
Is Abidjan Lead still around?
Sorry, internet is going, but it isn't so.
Yeah. So I was asking, is Abidjan Lead still there?
Who?
Abidjan Lead.
Abidjan Lead. Yeah, no, it's fine now. It's fine. Yeah. So Abidjan Lead went on a hiatus during the COVID month, but yeah, Abidjan Lead was happening. And we need to restart it again, probably next year now, because I am traveling and all the other people in the group are kind of busy with different things. And Law is really busy with the TV stuff that she's doing. She's really doing a good job. But also, like when we talk about literature in the Francophone world, I know there are a lot of individual initiatives, but at some point we must talk about like also, governmental, what are the governments doing? Last time I was on a panel with somebody and they said, okay, so if the government is not involved, what can you guys do? But we are doing everything we can, with our own money. And this, one of the panelists said, oh yeah, but we can get books and like entrust the book to somebody to travel with them across borders. But really, how many books are you going to be entrusting to people? 5 books, 10 books, 20 books, when people are shipping containers of books in a country? So at some point, I think also the government really needs to be involved. Most of the literary initiatives, at least that are happening in Cote d'Ivoire, are on people's own funds. And as I mentioned earlier on, the monthly minimum wage is $100, and life in Abidjan is very expensive. $100 monthly minimum wage is $100 US dollar. Yeah, it is shocking, and life in Abidjan is very expensive. So private initiative can go only as far as they can. At some point, the government also need to be fully implicated. We need to have funds available. And every time I say that, people say, yeah, but you need to go to the ministry and ask. And I'm like, no, I do not need to go to the ministry and ask. He needs to get his website sorted so that, or she's not a she, so that, you know, we have all of these stuff there. Yeah.
What about you, Beata? I mean, what are the, because you're kind of representing a bit of the diaspora writers in this forum. We understand that the challenges here with the governments are not involved. There are huge infrastructure issues. What are the issues for somebody who's trying to write and they're African in France or maybe in Belgium or Switzerland and they write in French?
I think maybe what I'm going to say is related to the French publishing industry, and what Edwige was saying. You will see the difference because the publishing industry here gets a lot of help from the government. You see, the publishers they get subventions, they get grants. When you're a writer and you need to find residencies, there are residencies. How many residencies do we have in Francophone Africa? Not that many. And you were talking about, even places to learn to write, right? Edwige, you were talking about Emily Boone. She's a good friend of mine, and we were together at Lire Douala. And earlier this year, in close to Douala, but thanks to someone who is a mécène, I don't know how you say it in English.
Like a support of the art.
Who have a foundation. She's the one, Marème Malon. She's the
patron.
one who did make it happen. There was a writing masterclass in Douala launched by Emily Boone. I couldn't go because of the COVID situation, but with 25 young writers and get them the opportunity to be part of this master class and then help them to get published after that. But we have all this here in France, whether you're French or white or not, French or another nationality, you can access to that, and this is not the case in the continent. So somehow we who live here have much more opportunities to become writers, even if, as I said, when you get to trying to get published, you will have to fight with all the cliche and what is weighted from you, what is the representation they have from what you have to write. But apart from that, once you get published, you get more chances. And I think we don't have to forget our brothers and sisters who are on the continent, because otherwise what? Africa is going to be only the place we come and take the stories and take the good stories and take the imagination and the backstage and the background, and then come to Europe and write. I think this is not fair, and this doesn't make sense. So, and also wherever you go, however high you can reach, the most important will always be where you come from, home, your own people. If you don't get those people reading you, if you don't get those people, recognition or even exchange with them, then whatever you can get elsewhere will never have the same taste or interest. So that's why
I want to ask.
I'm sorry. I'm saying everything that Edwige says for me is really important. It's not only the issues of those who live in the continent. It's also it should be shared, and it is shared. It's a concern that is shared with those in the diaspora, definitely. And that's why, for example, what we're starting to do. You were talking about Mohamed Bougarsa. His last novel is published both by a French publishing house and a Senegalese publishing house. Jimsan, it's a publishing house, I think, launched by Felwinsa. But then I don't know how does it cost the same price in, say, Western Africa as in France or not?
I actually have it here. And yeah, it is the same price. It's because the same cover. Let me really find it seriously.
As
Because,
you're
for
looking for it,
example,
I just
what
want to
we're
ask that
trying, yes.
as you're looking for it, I mean, there's something that you've mentioned. Both of you have mentioned twice. Um, you mentioned that, Abidjan Late had to stop because of COVID, and Beata, you couldn't travel a lot because of COVID. What are some of the things that COVID? I mean, I know that the people had to stop doing things, but were there some of the things that happened because of COVID that maybe you were able to see that there are ways of coming together, or was COVID just a disaster for the writing scene that you guys are involved in?
No, you're absolutely
Well,
right.
COVID was a
This
disaster.
situation made us find other ways to communicate, and I think I would never had met all those writers from Anglophone and Lusophone part of Africa without Afrolit Sans Frontières. And Afrolit Sans Frontières was something that was, very fresh, very spontaneous from the COVID situation, for example.
Yeah, and also different ways of meeting, and doing a festival. Maybe because I'm Lira Douala is very interesting because people who've been there, I haven't had the chance to go there yet, but people who've been there, they are like, it's a breath of fresh air, it is refreshing. But really, where Afrolit Sans Frontières was interesting for the French-speaking writers was all sorts of questions were being asked. It wasn't, we were removed from the from the pompousness of, so tell me about this theme in your book, and what is literature for you, with that voice that you tend to do in our gathering of writers, in the French speaking world. I mean, you go to the book fair here and it's really like that. But yeah, so it was great, in the sense, with COVID. And really COVID stopped stuff, I think, for a week in some parts of Abidjan, and then life started back again. I think I was being overly cautious when I closed the library for like 2 months. Otherwise, when I went to the neighborhood where the library is, and I saw people on the street hugging, and and I was thinking, what are you doing hugging? So I was overly cautious in closing the place and putting gel outside, and get your mask on. But things were happening. Things were happening. Yeah. We just need to raise the level.
Yeah, I'm okay. I mean, I've noticed this seems to be like a pattern in all the live streams I've done, where everybody seems to be referring to this Afrolit project in ways that I didn't anticipate. I mean, we were part of it, but a lot of us didn't expect that it would be that vital to the system. You talked about it's the thing I don't understand as somebody who's coming from a language where we speak in English and we all have all these voices. And when you speak, the French-speaking people, they always seem to be quite close to each other. So it's really surprising for me that there's no communication, there's no coordination. I don't know. Is this or am I being weird not understanding this? What is the story there? Because whenever I see the French-speaking people in the literary communities, they always come together. So what is the issue with maybe the festivals like Douala, Bamako not communicating? Or does everything has to be? Does the switch have to come from Paris for anything to happen on the continent?
I don't think it's I think my internet may be going bad. I don't think it's a case of coming from Paris. I also think it's a culture thing. There are different ways of doing literature in from what I've observed in the in the Anglophone scene to what I've observed at least in Cote d'Ivoire. I've never actually been to Paris. I don't even know. I've been as far as Marseille. That's where I stopped on my French Odyssey. But from what I have seen, it's just more formal, more fair-like, and I think the culture also, even the way the language is spoken, French has a way of being spoken, that's, French has a formality to it that English doesn't, and it translates in everything that gets done, especially when it become a bit officialese. I don't know if you have anything to add.
I think you're right. There is something about this formality and a very elitistic way of dealing with literature. It's so elitistic that sometimes it doesn't want to have to deal with money, for example. I'm going to give you an example. I'm always amazed when I work with Anglophone people, I had to work with different Anglophone publisher or, for reviews and things like that. The question of money is immediately talked about. This is how much you're going to be paid, and that's it. Mm-hmm. In the French sphere, the publisher will elude this question, and if you talk about, okay, how much am I going to get, what is the percentage as a writer, you will seem to be rude, right? This is and so when it gets to doing business, because publishing is a business, and you are dealing with people who are more concerned about, do you use proper words or grammatical tenure, than, okay, how are we going to do it, and how much is it going to cost, and how much are you going to get out of this, is never talked about. You can get the whole schema, the way people think.
Yeah.
And so there is this elitistic way of thinking things. There is the way that somehow, I won't say that it comes from how Paris, the Paris nod, but still, I don't have the impression that within the Anglophone region or speaking countries, you still have to answer to that question, why do you write in English? Do you still have that question?
Yes,
no.
We do.
You do
yes.
have it?
Yes. It still comes, especially if you go to Europe. It has to come.
We're doomed.
No, actually, there's something Beata mentioned. I just want to clarify. When you're talking about money, is it when you're saying that I'm going for an event, I need to be paid? Or are you talking about, like, for instance, when you're doing your contracts for your book, where you're saying, how much percentage should I get for my royalties? How much should I get an advance payment? Is that what you're talking about?
Both. Because up to recently, you didn't get paid when you were going to salon or even some festivals. Like it's like a gift for you. They're giving you a gift, or it's a honor that they invite you. It's a honor that they publish you. And for example, I was really astonished to realize that.
I love your face, James.
Yes, for example, to have an agent here in France, it's almost political. It's almost like you are declaring war to your publisher if you come with an agent.
Okay. So you can't even talk about the percentages of your royalties. So how do you know how much?
You will talk it at the very end, and in a way that you are all as if you were disgusted by that, or if you were ashamed by that. But it's not something that you're going to talk blankly from the very beginning. No.
So having an agent is not normal in the Francophone side.
It's very rare. It's changing little by little, but up to now it was, if you come to your publisher and you say, okay, now I have an agent, he will be mad, or she will be mad at you.
Like what you said about, also French publishing, and by ricochet, Francophone publishing being a little bit elitistic. Yeah, I have an anecdote about, one book fair in Paris. The only one time I was going to go to Paris, and then this guy said, oh yeah, if you come from our, director, from the Ministry of Culture here, so he wasn't just some random person, said, oh yeah, you should come, we can get you the ticket. And the ticket was like €6. And I'm thinking my lipstick costs more than that. Why do you think that €6 is a privilege for me? But about the elitistic nature of it. I like the way in the Anglophone sphere, language is played with. It is played with. The English language is played with. I do not know, for instance, what degree Troy has. I don't know what degree Zutiswa has. But here, people lead with that, where they studied and how they won the aggregation at this place, and they're a doctor in this before getting to the book that they wrote. And I'm thinking, it is not necessary.
Yeah.
My internet is shit.
We'll accept your internet for today, but I'm really I'm learning a lot, because I have to tell you, like, I assume that this is normal, where people talk about how much are you paying me for doing whatever I'm doing, how much are my royalties, and when you tell me the royalties, we can now negotiate on what I'm supposed to take or not take. So I mean, this is actually the crux of the matter. I mean, if you can't negotiate how much money you're making on the work you're producing, already you're at a huge disadvantage.
Yeah, and things are changing little by little. So there is a kind of union of writers that is starting to get things changed and done, and so that we as writer learn what our rights are and what can we ask for and get. But there is this really, you are published in this very famous publishing house, so you should even thank us for the rest of your life, and that's it. And there's this thing about everything is done in Paris. So when you get to Paris, then you're going to have your glittering eyes and ask nothing, and I say nothing. And I think this vraiment c'est de elitism. And when you come from and when you become successful, for example, we have some Belgian writers, in Belgium there half of the country is francophone. And there are some Belgian writers who really became successful here in France. And so they don't call them Belgium anymore. Most of the population think that they are French because they're famous. And because they're white, of course. When you have a dark skin, you can't escape from that. But someone like Amélie Nothomb, or a former writer of crime novel Simon, nobody remember that they are Belgium because they're successful. It means that forgetting that you come from another country and considering that you're French is a gift it's something that you get from success. This is how it works here.
I've learned so much in the last 57 minutes.
It's for example, Zadie Smith. I know Zadie Smith is dark skin. Let's say some British Canadian writer. Alice Munro will be considered at some moment like American because she's successful in America, and she will be happy with that. There's something wrong.
So I know you've been talking about some of the downsides. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to in the coming months and weeks about the scene that you're in? Are you seeing it really changing more? Like you're saying, you have a group of writers who are coming together. Are you optimistic, or you're gonna be stuck here for a while?
No, we're not going to be stuck here for a while. I am optimistic about, things changing. I think, like Beata mentioned earlier on, we have this younger generation of writer. I do not count myself among that younger generation. But we have this younger generation of writer coming up who are trying to be more their own country centric, or more continent centric, more Africa centric. Because most of them have not been to this France that we speak of. And when they have been, they have not seen this France that is le pays the whatever, but just see like a normal country that is just trying to make do. So they're like, really? Is this place they sold us as the paradise? So France is no longer the El Dorado. So I see changes. Even in this country, my country, I see changes. I see writers, coming together. I see them wanting to perfect the writing, the writing, and because we are also having more work in translation, it is helping people. Before, people used to think that, okay, I'll just publish some stuff and then I will get it translated so that I get sales, because we used to think that sales used to happen more in the Anglophone market. And you're like, no, my friend, shit translate as shit in whether it is in French or in English. But, they read work in translation coming out of all of these other places. They get to read short story collections and they're like, oh, we want some of that. Oh, this is how you build like a character. This is how you, so it is happening. I think in the next year or two, things are going to change. Even
Yes.
all of these literary magazines that we're speaking of, things are going to change more. There is a new dynamic that is happening. Yeah.
Yes, I think we're moving on very quickly. And the connections are made and the translation is there. And I think we also more and more who are able to switch from one language to another. And at the end of the day, the most important is being able to communicate to each other, to exchange like what you're offering here today, and for people to understand that. And even if my English is really not good, at least I can explain that kind of things to you, and I can hear things from you. And Edwige also as a translator, like she's the bridge between the different parts of Africa, and also with the Lusophone part. I think there's something interesting about the fact that the most important is not the language. The most important is our experiences as writers, as publishers, as literary organizers, as translators, whatever the language. And we have to be able to share about this, to organize ourselves, and to fight for what we have in common. And I'm really very confident about the fact that we're going in the next months and years be able to do that, because now that we're together, nobody's going to pull us apart.
That's a very exciting way of wrapping up this session. I'd like to say thank you so much, Beata. Thank you so much, Edwige, for giving me us the 1 hour. Thank you to those who will be seeing this in the future. And I'd like to say thank you to the Frankfurter Burgmeister, my partners, as well as the German Foreign Federal Office. You can see there who provided funding for this event. And for all of you who are out there, I'd like to say goodbye. I think we should do it in French as well.
Thank you so much.
Merci James de nous avoir accueillis. C'était un plaisir d'être là. And à la prochaine.
Thank you, James. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody out there.